All right, everybody. Good evening. We are going to be going through Chapter 3, Duties and Disclosures to Third Parties. So, when we talk about third parties, we're actually not talking about people that are part of the transaction. Okay? So, in this particular situation, for example, Mr. Aiden, as you are representing a client, it's just going to be us tonight. In this situation is that if Aiden, you are representing, say, Mr. Jacob, okay, Mr. Jacob is not a third party to the transaction. He's a buyer. And if Mr. Travis, you're representing Miss Leela, Miss Leela is not a third party to the transaction because she's part of it. She's the seller. So Mr. Jacob and Miss Leela are actually ending up, they are buyer and seller. So they are part of the contract. Now the question is, and Mr. Travis, me and you had this discussion last night, and I think even on Saturday, does the real estate agent or broker ever sign the contract? We actually physically sign the contract. No. No. We as real estate agents do not sign the contract. Okay? So, Aiden, does that mean that we are third parties?
I don't think so.
No. We're an agent. We're not third parties. But if y'all are closing with Miss Davenport, okay, and she's titled, is Miss Davenport third party?
Yes.
Yeah, she is. She's a third party independent person. What about Mr. Grossman here? He's the lender. Is he a third party? Yeah, he is. He's a third party. Okay. So what we're going to talk about is we're talking about this in regards to the people outside of the contract. What about the home inspector? Do you think the home inspector is a third party? Yeah. Okay. So all of these are very key things that we're going to talk about tonight. So this evening, our discussion is going to basically talk about non-fiduciary duties, general duties of honesty and fairness. We're going to define the third party and obligations to third parties. We're also going to avoid disclosures and misrepresentation problems. We're also going to talk about this thing called a seller's disclosure. That's not important, Travis, right? Seller's disclosure, not a big deal, right?
I don't need them.
Okay. Yeah. That's Mr. Travis. He's getting his seller's disclosure, and we'll talk about it because clients, they don't ever have questions, do they?
So many questions.
So many questions. So in that situation, we're going to talk about seller's disclosure in section 5.008. Okay. We're also going to talk about material facts, which we talked a lot about that last night, but we're going to spend a little bit of time on that. We'll also go in and talk about stigmatized properties. And yes, I am talking about purely psychological stigmas in regards to, yes, ghosts and aliens. So we will talk about that. We'll also talk about physical stigmas, guidelines for disclosure of stigmatized properties, and also prohibited disclosures of third parties. And we'll also talk about liability for misrepresentation. So we're going to go on and get started, basically talking about the non-fiduciary duties. Okay. Again, these are duties that are owed to customers. Okay, not clients. And last night, what did we tell Ms. Davenport? How do we distinguish between a customer and a client? What's the main thing that we distinguish to determine if a person's a customer or a client? What's the thing? That's right. It's got to be a contract. It's got to be in writing. So if there's no contract, then that person is a customer. If there is a contract, then that person is going to be a client. Okay. Now, there is going to be, and we talked a little bit, we'll talk more about this as we go through this course. Does there always have to be a contract? A written contract? No. There can be something through my actions. I may be acting a certain way where Enrique thinks that I am his agent. We don't have a contract, but he may think I am his agent. And if he thinks I'm his agent and I act like his agent, guess what? And the rule of the law is I'm his agent. Okay? So if your client thinks you're their agent and you act as their agent, you become their agent. Okay? So your actions sometimes can actually be detrimental to you. Okay? It can be very bad. Now, again, like we said, is we're going to be discussing also any consumers as well. So customers are non-clients, but the general public are what we call consumers. Okay? Consumers are going to be just anybody else. Okay? So in these situations, we're going to be talking about how and what duties we owe. All right? And if you have your book, which it is online, again, it ends up, it's discussed throughout the chapter. Okay? But primarily what you want to know is basically you owe certain things to non-third party individuals. I have to disclose certain information. I have to be fair. I have to be honest. I cannot be deceitful. I have to be, basically, like I tell people, I have to follow the golden rule. Okay? I have to follow the golden rule. But I do not have to give advice, opinions, and things of that nature because there is no representation agreement in that situation. So what exactly are the general duties, okay, to non-clients? These are third-party people. Well, you have to be honest and fair, okay? So general duties of honesty and fairness to all parties. That means even your own clients. We're talking about everyone, all parties, third parties, everybody. We have to have a general duties of honesty and fairness. But here's the key one here. Mr. Grossman, what's that second bullet right there say, sir?
Fairly does not mean equally.
What does that mean? What do you think fairly does not mean equally?
I mean, you're going to treat your clients better than your not clients, correct?
Well, that's true. But also in a situation is, Mr. Travis, you've got a $1 million client, and you have Mr. Davenport's your $1 million client, and you have Aiden who's buying a $10,000 lot. Okay? Now, you do have certain duties to both of these individuals, but are you going to honestly and truthfully treat both of them fairly? No, because of why? It's impossible to treat them fairly. Now, here's the sad part. A lot of people would think, who's going to eat up most of your time? Miss Davenport or Mr. Aiden?
A lot of people would think the really expensive.
Yeah, most people are going to think Miss Davenport's going to eat up all my time, when in reality, who eats up all your time? It's the other one. Okay?
Need a good lot.
It's Mr. Aiden here who has to ask a million questions, and he's got that whole $10,000. That's some life savings there for
That's
him.
my limit,
So,
though.
yeah,
That's the limit.
but in that situation is yes. A lot of people think that, that the higher the price, the more I got to spend time with them. Not always. See, this is the key thing I love about a client. My key thing about what I love about a client is this. You ready? I like the client to trust me. I like the client to trust me. I trust my client. I have a duty to my client, no matter if they're a buyer or seller. I have a duty to my client. And I'm going to ensure all parties get what they want, period. Okay? When I go in and I talk to a client, like I had a conversation today with a client of ours, and I was talking to her husband. And I was talking to her husband, I was explaining the situation, and he basically said, Justin, you don't even have to explain to me. I trust you. You're my agent. I wouldn't have hired you if you weren't my agent. Okay? You do what you got to do. All right? That right there is what I love about a client. Let me do what I do. And if it's in a very bad situation or something comes up, then let's talk about it. Then at that point, I'm going to call up, say, Aiden, and say, hey, Aiden, all right, I've done everything I can. I've been negotiating for the past 2 to 3 hours. I've been going through back and forth with this person, and they just won't budge. They're good with everything else except $1,000. You good with it if we just let $1,000 go? You may say, if you're a laid back person, you may say, Justin, I'm not going to fight over $1,000. But then there are other people that $1,000, if you're buying a $10,000 lot of land, that's a lot of money.
Yep.
Okay, so you have to look at this from those situations. Thankfully, as a broker, I can, in some situations, go to the table and say, what if I give $250? Could you pay the difference? Okay. Now, I'm not in the business to give away money, because the fact is, especially if it's a $10,000 transaction, I may be making, after taxes and expenses and all, I might be making $50. Okay. So I may not have $250 to give to you. I may have $50 I can throw your way, but I'm making no money on the transaction. Okay. That's one thing a lot of people don't see in real estate. When we talked last night about commissions, people just assume that we just make tons of money, Travis, just tons and tons of money.
It just flows in.
It just flows in constantly. Just money just, oh yeah, money just flies on in here like millions of dollars every day. But here's the thing is, unfortunately, that money as it comes in immediately goes to who? Mr. Taxman or woman takes their nice chunk and puts in their pocket. Okay? And then, like I tell people, it's like with the rent. I got to pay rent, so the landlord takes a chunk, puts in their pocket. By the time all that stuff happens, guess what happens? There's not much left over. You know, especially if there's a commission split. I tell my agents, y'all are the ones that actually make the money, because most of the time, now, depends on your firm, we'll just say it that way. Most firms, if you want to use their office, they charge you an office fee. Okay? So not only do you pay for your insurance, but you pay an office fee. And normally that office fee is a minimum of $250 a month just to come into a bullpen, like what I have here at my office. $250 a month is a bullpen. Okay? So when you're going through these situations is most of the time, depending on where your brokerage is, most of the time you're really making more than your broker does. Really and honestly, it comes down to it. But again, when it comes back to, and like I'm trying to pull back, I'm going a little bit off track, I'm going to come back here, is you have to explain and understand to your client that fairly is not always going to be equally. Okay? I'm not going to be able to sit down, if I have 15 clients, I'm not going to be able to sit down and talk to every one of those clients. Just like my real estate agents. I would love, I'm not going to lie, I would love to sit down every day, talk to every one of my agents every single day, 30 minutes to an hour every single day. Just talk to them. I'd love to do that.
That's nice.
I would love to. But then there's this lady called Linda who, what happens, Travis? She just always never will let us talk.
I know.
It's get back to work. Get here. Go do this.
I know.
Go do that. So in that situation, you need to grab her.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. So in that situation is like I tell people all the time is that it's not able to happen. I mean, we just can't. We can't do those things. You can't be fairly all the time. It's not always going to be equally. Licensees must balance the fiduciary duty of confidentiality with this duty of honesty. Okay? So people ask me this question all the time. They'll say something like, you know, Mr. Travis, say for example, you're my agent, and I tell you, yeah, Travis, I could accept 500,000, but I want you to list it for 800. Okay? So I tell you that in confidence. Miss Davenport comes to you and says, well, okay, Travis, all honesty, man. I want all honesty here. Okay? I want to know, in this situation, I just want to be dead honest with you. What's Justin's lowest number? Well, now, isn't there a problem here? Because what do you got? You got to be confidential, but you also got to be honest. So in that situation is, do you think that the duty of honesty trumps confidentiality? No. No. Because of the fact is that confidentiality is I'm just telling him so he knows in the back of his head. But in reality, the response to Ms. Davenport should be, I really don't know, to be honest with you. I really don't. Clients always tell me different numbers, but those change every day, right, Mr. Grossman? Every day. Every day. 1 minute it's this one, next minute's this one, next minute's this one. It's all over the place. Okay? But again, this duty of honesty means that you're going to be honest about certain disclosures, not about disclosing confidential information. So what exactly is a third party? Well, a third party defined is going to basically be in a listing agreement for the agency services. The two parties are the broker and the seller, and the buyer and a third party. So in this particular situation, the listing agreement, I'm listing Mr. Keith's house. I'm the broker, okay? So I'm the broker. Mr. Keith is part of the transaction. And if there is, say, Mr. Grossman comes into the transaction and he brings you, Aiden, as a customer, then guess what? Aiden is a third party, even though he's in contractual agreement. Okay? Because the fact is, what are you, Aiden?
Customer.
You're a customer, you're not a client, so you're not represented. But if you're represented, there could be a potential that you would not be a third party. So you got to look at how these are coming around. Okay? You click on the other one. Now, so what is our obligations? What is our duties to these third parties? Well, we have to be, number one, honest. We have to be fair. And we have to be, that middle one, competent. Competent. Now, I want to spend a minute on this competency. A lot of real estate agents in this field, sad to say that it had to come to this, but because with the internet, it's basically caused a lot of problems. But real estate agents, guess what they end up doing? Some of them are starving. We'll just put it that way. Some of them have their base, some of them starve. So if Mr. Aiden has never done a transaction in his life, and Ms. Davenport comes up to you today and says, hey, Mr. Aiden, I'd like you to represent me. I'm paying $6 million for a mansion, and I'm looking anywhere in the state of Texas. Is it wise for you to take Ms. Davenport to, say, Dallas and show her properties?
No.
Why?
I have no knowledge of the area.
You have no knowledge of that area whatsoever. And if she's paying $6 million for a house, she wants to make certain what? You better know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, does that mean that you just need to give it away to Stephanie?
No.
No, what should you do? What do you think you should do?
Communicate that with you.
Well, of course, but what would you recommend to me as your broker? What would you recommend to me? Probably recommend you ask Mr. Grossman, you come to my office and say, can I bring in Mr. Grossman, who is familiar with Dallas, to help me show properties with Ms. Davenport, and me and Mr. Grossman do a split? Because now who's the competent one? Stephanie is. But who generated the lead? You. Okay? So you're competent, you generated the lead. So in this situation, it's a win-win for Miss Davenport because what's she getting now? She's getting two people in her corner. Man, Miss Davenport, if you're going to court, how would that be if you had two lawyers on your side? Would you be happy there? Heck yeah. It's just the same thing. You got two representatives that are looking out for her interest. Okay? But you might even, in some situations, Miss Davenport may say, I'm looking not only in Dallas, but I'm looking in Galveston. Well, what else should you do? Bring in Travis too. Okay?
Come on in.
That's right. So the key thing in this situation is competent. Okay? A lot of agents will argue this. They'll say, well, hold on, everybody. I have access to the MLS. That makes me competent. That's like saying this. You ready? That's like me saying, everybody, I can be whatever I want. I can be a doctor. I can be a lawyer. I can be a brain surgeon. I can be a realtor because I have access to the internet. Does that make me any of those things? No. No. You cannot use that argument. Okay? Good faith and disclosure of materials. You have to use good faith. Again, Trek rules of fairness, promptly presenting all offers. What's that word right there, Mr. Ayton?
All.
What's all mean?
And every single one.
Every one. Every one of them needs to be presented. Even if your client says no, you still need to just send it over. Okay? You also need to avoid any misrepresentation or false promises. We get in this situation where we'll say things like this: "Oh, yeah, Sheldon, you know what, girl? You just go over there and you buy this lot of land, and I guarantee you're going to make 100% profit over 10 years." Can you guarantee that? No. Can you guarantee a 1% increase?
Nope.
Can you guarantee 100% or 10 or anything? No, you can't guarantee nothing because you don't know the future. If you do, by the way, Sheldon, if you know the future, by the way, I need some lottery numbers coming up. So just hand them on over to me.
I'll keep that in mind.
So in that situation is that, yes, you cannot, in that situation, you cannot make promises that you're not certain about. Now, I will say this, I will promise you this, is you'll be out there showing properties, Mr. Travis, and they'll start asking, just one question, because clients only ask one
Yeah,
question.
never ask more than one.
Yeah, no more than one, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to come out there and they're just going to say, "Well, are you sure, Mr. Travis, that this is a new roof?" What are you going to say? I don't know. Well, let's think about this, Travis. So it was built in 2014. Since it was built in 2014, that means that this has to be a newer roof, right, Mr. Travis?
All that means.
So you see where I'm going with this? What am I trying to do to Travis? I'm trying to corner him. Trying to corner Travis. I'm trying to get him to say what? That it's a new roof. Because if Travis says it and it's not, what happens? Travis lies. Now we'll see Travis. Okay? That's right, I'm mean. I learned from Stephen. Here. But then the situation is that, yes, you do not provide any false promises. Okay? You gotta be honest and you gotta be truthful. Okay? Now, how do we avoid problems? Well, our very first one is misrepresentation. Now, misrepresentation can be intentional or accidental. I'll say that again. It can be intentional or it can be accidental. Okay? Intentional is I go over and I say to Garrett, I say, "Mr. Garrett, guess what, man? This house has a brand new remodel and the structure is perfect." When I know in reality that there was termite basically damaged before and they didn't fix it. I am intentionally giving a false promise in regards to material facts. Blind. Okay? Accidental misrepresentation is this. I go over and I sit down with Miss Davenport and I'm filling out the MLS sheet and I get busy and I get a phone call and I say, "Miss Davenport, here, ma'am, would you mind just finishing that sheet? Let me take this phone call." And when I get off my phone call, "Oh, man, Miss Davenport, I got to go. Thank you for that sheet." I'm going to go on and she's like, but I got, "We're good, Miss Davenport. Thank you, ma'am. I got to go." Okay? What's the problem with that? The problem is this, is that, Miss Davenport, I unintentionally did not mean to do this, but what did I end up doing? I did not find out the details, okay? I did not get the material fact that you were about to ask me that you had the water heater exploded in your ceiling in your attic and it flooded the room, and you want to know if that's important. But I was so occupied with something else that I did not get that information. Did I intentionally forget or not disclose that? No. Did Miss Davenport intentionally? No. But she did by negligence. Okay? So in that situation is, you always, I tell people this all the time, is you disclose everything you know about that property. I don't care if it's good, bad, or ugly. Disclose it. The reason that you do that is you limit your potential of them coming back suing you for non-disclosure. Okay, very key here. Also, failure to disclose any red flags. So Mr. Aiden and Mr. Travis currently are dealing with the property right now. And Mr. Aiden and Mr. Travis are going around and they're looking at a property. And say, for example, that in this property you are about to list for sale, Travis and Aiden, y'all both notice that there's some cracking around the doors and the windows.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, I didn't see it. You go around and you see this cracking here, and you're at Enrique's house, okay? So you're in Enrique's house, you walk around, you see this cracking and all, and like Travis said, well, I'm not a home inspector, so I'm not going to say nothing about that. I'm just going to go in and take what Enrique puts on the form, and I'm going to go in and send that off.
I'm just a handyman.
You're just a handyman there, right? So in this situation did you disclose those red flags? No, you didn't. Guess what? You've now created problems under misrepresentation. Now, if, say, you went to Enrique and said, hey, Enrique, I got a question for you. What's all this cracking up here and cracking here and cracking here? What is all of this? And Enrique says, oh, yeah, I need to paint those and cover those up before we put that on the market. What do you do then, Aiden?
We have to disclose it as well.
It needs to be disclosed. But what if he says, oh, it's nothing, it's just settlement, I'm just going to paint it. No, we're not going to disclose it. What should you do?
Tell them that we're either going to have to, or I'll have to drop the listing.
No, you don't have to drop him. Here's what you tell him. You ready? You say, Enrique, that's fine. If you want to paint them, you want to fill it up, that's fine with me. But we got to disclose it because now I'm alert to it. Okay. And number two, if you don't disclose it, you're going to have a higher chance of getting sued. Okay. And by the way, you not only just get sued for damages, but you get sued for 3 times. Do you see what I'm saying?
I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
So, for instance, what if it is just settlement? Wouldn't it just be at the point whenever the new buyer's coming in for them just to bring an inspector in?
That is correct. But here's the thing, Enrique. You don't want to end up painting to cover it because think of it from this way. What would a normal person, say you were the buyer, okay, you're the buyer's agent, and you walked into my house and I had gone in and freshly painted over those areas. What are you going to think that I was trying to do, even if it was settlement?
Just cover up some damage that is bigger than it is.
And so in that situation, it's always best to just let it be. Let the inspector come out, look at it, and let the inspector make the determination that it's simple settlement. And then if the new buyer wants it painted, then you paint it after the inspection is done. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So, but that's a good question. That's a very good question there. Because of the fact is that a lot of people will think, they'll actually ask you. They'll literally ask you, Aiden, should I paint these little cracks on the walls and stuff like this? Well, you can, but what you need to do is you need to take pictures of it before. So you need to take a before and an after. And you need to submit that with your seller's disclosure. Because if I go in and I start painting, okay, and the guys and gals, I've been dealing with this for a long time, my clients immediately, they walk in a house and they see a fresh coat of paint over cracking, they immediately, that's foundation, I'm out of here. Even if it's settlement, like Enrique said. Nope, not to them. It is settlement issues, it's foundation issues, I'm out of here. Not even going to talk about it. Because they're going to think that in that hypothetical, Enrique is trying to hide something. He's trying to hide something. When in reality, he's not. He's not. So by all means, when you see these things, and understand, sellers don't always, people get this wrong. People think that sellers are purposely trying to hide stuff. No, they're not. See, what happens is, and it's sad in this field, say, for example, that, let's see here, Miss Leela goes over in a situation and she hires me, and I'm a brand new agent. I just got my real estate license. I finished these courses, set for my exam, I passed, and I got my real estate license. Woohoo, me, right? Okay, so I got my license, I got Miss Leela, and she's a good friend of mine, and she was talking to Miss Davenport, but she's like, Miss Davenport's charging me 3%, and Justin's a newbie, and he's only charging 1%. I'm gonna go with Justin. Okay, and that's how clients think, unfortunately. So instead of let's get an expert, Miss Davenport, I'm gonna go with the cheaper one. Okay, so they get me, and I'm a brand new agent. What do they call them? Still wet behind my ears, as they say. So here I am, okay, and I come over here and I'm like, okay, Miss Leela, you know, I took the classes from Mr. Justin, and you know, I think if I remembered right, we need to paint the whole house, and you definitely want to paint everything that has cracks in the roof. So Miss Leela does what? She paints the whole house, and she particularly putties where the cracks are, and she paints them. And then she goes outside, and I'm like, oh goodness, Miss Leela, the yard, you know, I'm looking there's some foundation here. Hurry, let's put some stuff around it to hide that stuff. Let's put some shrubs around there, make it look nice. Okay? Well, guess what's happening? I am basically setting Miss Leela up for a what? A lawsuit. I'm setting her up, not intentional. Miss Leela's not doing it intentional, but I'm setting her up for failure. Now, am I saying in this situation that you should never, ever, ever, ever try to make a house look nice? No, no. It's fine to go in there, but let me tell you, this is how you do it. You want to do it right? This is how you do it. Let's go in there. So let's go back to Enrique here. Enrique wants to make his house look very presentable because he wants top dollar. Then, okay, Enrique, here's the first thing I want you to do. I want you to go in and I want you to get an inspection. Okay, so I want you to get an inspection for me. He's going to go in and get an inspection of the property, and it's going to say all the damages in the house. So it's going to say if there's damage in structure, settlement, or any of that stuff. It's going to be on that inspection report. So we get it, and then what I tell Enrique is this. Okay, now Enrique, any of these particular elements, these need to be fixed. Foundation, roof, HVAC, you need to get all these fixed. And they need to be fixed by a licensed professional. Not by Travis the handyman. Okay? It's got to be a licensed professional. And you need receipts. Okay? Once all of those are fixed, I have my inspection report. I have my receipts of it being fixed. Now I can go through and paint the whole house and make it look nice. Okay? Because when Miss Davenport walks in to look at the house, I already am going to tell Miss Davenport up front, Miss Davenport, here is the inspection we did 3 months ago. Here's the repairs we did on the property. And by the way, we painted the house. You may notice some putty around certain areas because of possible settlement. But if you look on page 7 of the inspection report, it shows it's no major damage. But you're more than welcome to do your own inspection.
So you're saying that it's recommended for the the seller to run the inspection?
If they are wanting to do a flip, okay?
A flip, okay.
Or if they want to they want to sell for top dollar. So if they come in and they're like, if they tell you, I want top dollar, and I'm not in a rush to sell, then yeah, let's get an inspection, let's get things fixed, and let's repaint this thing. Let's make this thing look beautiful. But if your client is in a rush, okay, and they need to get it on the market ASAP, you probably just want to leave the house as is, let people get their own inspectors and move forward. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, these are good questions. I'm liking this tonight. So, again, you have to disclose these red flags. Now, of course, this is the favorite word. Mr. Grossman loves that word. Liability, right, Mr. Grossman? Uh-huh. We love hearing that word, right? So, liability often occurs in regards to the materiality of the issue. Like I said yesterday, I said, well, if Mr. Jacob wants the pipes behind this wall to end up being blue, and I put pink ones, is it really a material issue, honestly? No. Because does it affect how it performs? Color does not affect how it performs. Okay? But if Mr. Jacob said, Justin, I want copper, and I put some cheap plastic back there, now it is a material issue. Okay? Also, the question they're going to ask, were statements of fact or were they statements of opinion? And this can be a very easily changed way, okay? Because something that I may say that I think is an opinion, I may make an opinion about something, but somebody may take it as fact, or vice versa, okay? So you got to be very careful. That's why I always tell people, if you go and look at a house, and I've done this before, I've had clients that they flip houses. That's what they do for a living. And the client tells me straight up, no, Mr. Travis, I do not want an inspection. I don't need it. I deal with this every single day. This is my job. I don't want an inspection. Well, what should Travis follow up with? Do you just let it go, Travis, and just take me at my word, or what should you do? Do you need it in?
I would need that in writing.
You need it in writing. Why?
Because I would suggest you get one, and it's kind of my job to inform you that you would need one. And
That's
so
right.
if it's known that I didn't do that, that could be a problem. So I would need to know that I did and you refused.
That's correct. So I need, because when you go to a judge, you go before Judge Davenport here, okay? Do you think she's going to care about your word against my word?
Oh, no.
No. Oh, Your Honor, I swear I wanted an inspector, and Travis just would not get me one. It is all on Travis. Uh-huh. Right? Yep. That's how it is. That's how these people do. Okay? So you've got to have it in writing. Now, this is the best of the best. This is the one that I love the most. And this is the seller's disclosure. So in this particular situation is, the question that you have to end up asking yourself is, how do we find out how truthful the seller is going to be? Okay? So in this situation is, we want to make certain that as we're going through this, that the client is actually going to end up being honest and truthful. Okay? Now, the key thing is, under section 5.008 of the Texas Property Code, seller's disclosure of property condition basically says that they are going to be required for most, not all, most residential sales. And Mr. Aiden, can you read that second dash here for me, sir? What does this second dash say right there?
Completed by seller, not agent.
What's that mean? I'm kind of a little, I'm a little slow. What does this mean? Can you explain it to me?
Yeah, the seller of the house, the actual resident, will fill out the seller's disclosure, not us as representatives.
So you're telling me, let me make sure I get this right. Make sure I get this right. All right, Stefan's a real estate agent,
Yes.
and I'm a seller.
Okay.
So I take the seller's disclosure,
Yeah.
and I go over here and I hand it to Stefan, and I say, fill this out. Is that right?
Incorrect.
Incorrect.
Yes.
What? But wait.
He's the agent.
But he's knowledgeable.
I already got enough forms to fill out. I need some more.
You don't need any more forms?
No.
Exactly. No, you can't. You don't need to end up. The seller completes it, not the agent. But wait. One more time. Hold on here. Okay. But I have OCD and bad handwriting. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go through and I'm going to write it out, and then I take the form to Stefan, hand it to him, and say, now type this up. Is that right?
No.
Why? What does
no,
this thing
'cause I
say?
said, oh, completed by seller, not agent.
But I filled it out and I gave it to Stefan.
Oh,
Can
hey,
he make mistakes?
Yep.
Can he do a typo error somewhere?
Yep.
And then if he does that, who's now liable?
reliable, him.
Oh. So you're telling me I can't ever let Stefan fill this form out?
Never.
Never lived in the house, how would I know that?
Exactly. Thank you for saying that. Stefan has never lived in the house. How in the heck is he going to know about all the issues? And this is going to be the next question you're going to get. You ready, Mr. Grossman? Well, I haven't either. I was a rental property. How do you expect me to fill it out?
To your best knowledge.
To the best of your knowledge. You're the one that's supposed to be doing what, Mr. Justin? You're the one that's supposed to be maintaining that property. Yeah, you didn't live there, but you're the one that's supposed to be taking care of the property. Okay? So in that situation is, you have to make certain that the seller completes the form. Even if they will give you a million reasons. Well, I have bad handwriting. I haven't lived in the house. I have carpal tunnel. I don't have time. You better do it for me. I'm firing you.
That's okay.
I've heard them all. Okay? Well, if you're going to fire me, you go right ahead and fire me, because I'm not taking that liability. I had a multi-million-dollar client one time that was like, I don't have time for this crap, and threw it back at me. And I was like, huh, I'm not filling it out, so I don't know who is. You're going to fill it. No, I'm not filling it out. And I walked out. My agents looked at me at that time that were with me and was like, what in the heck? You just walked out on your multi-million-dollar client? Yeah, I will. Yeah, I will. Because I'm not going to get into that situation where I fill that form out and it's incorrect and I get sued for over $3 million. No, thank you. No, thank you. Okay? I'm not going to do that. Now, there are two forms. There is TAR and there is TREC form. Now, the TREC form has the minimum items, so the least items. The TAR forms has the most. Now, Mr. Travis, I want to ask you a question. Say that your client, Miss Amber, comes to you, and she tells you, I want to complete the TREC form. But your broker says you need to complete the TAR. Which form do you complete?
Whichever one you say.
No. Your client. Your client. Remember, your client's all encompassing.
Sure, you know what they do.
Yeah, I would. I would most of the time. 99% of the time, it's probably wise you listen to me.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, there's those times that we have to listen to our client. And if that client says I'm filling out a TREC form, go for it. But I want it in writing that I told you you need TAR form, but you're choosing TREC. Because when it comes back and bites you, that ain't on me. That was on you. Okay? Again, the key thing, though, about the seller's disclosure is not a guarantee or warranty. Mr. Travis, this comes back to that one situation where we talked about the other day about the pool. Just because your client fills out the seller's disclosure does not mean that it's a guarantee or warranty it's going to last forever. See, people get this misconception. They think that when they get a seller's disclosure, by the way, when do you often complete a seller's disclosure? By closing? Do you do it at closing, or do you do it at the time of listing? The very beginning. So if I have a property that I put on the market, Ms. Davenport, I list your house. I come to your house and I sit down to list your home. Guess what? Ms. Davenport fills out the listing today. We don't sell her house for 2 years. Ms. Davenport, do you think your home probably changed in 2 years? Think things might have broke over time in 2 years? Yeah, depreciate, there's a bunch of things, right? So in that situation, guess what happens? It's not a guarantee or warranty. It is simply, this is the current situation, okay, at this point in time. The responsibility for this disclosure, as you see, is not the agent, it's the seller, okay? Now, most items that are going to be listed are talking about the physical condition. Okay, we're talking about the physical conditions. Now, the problem is that the liability occurs if the seller fails to disclose anything material. See, clients, they always read everything you send them. True or false, Mr. Travis?
False.
What? Wait. Okay, hold on. Let me go back. I know for a fact, when Miss Davenport worked in her own job, they read everything that she gave them. Like, literally sat there and read it. Any document she gave them, they read it verbatim. I know that's right, Mr. Davenport? Yeah, see? So it has to happen in real estate.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay.
They don't end up in this situation. They don't read it. They don't. I'll send a client. One time I sent a seller's disclosure to a client through email. It's a PDF. Client calls me. Hey, it won't work. What won't work? I can't put the boxes. I'm trying to double check on them. They won't check. They're not supposed to. You're supposed to print it off and fill it out. Well, what do? You print it out and fill it out. Well, that's a lot of work. Yeah, that's the idea. You're selling a house. Okay? So, yes, you have to explain to your client that they have to fully disclose anything material. When I'm providing a seller's disclosure, I put it to the point, I love to use the word lawsuit only in certain times. You don't want to overuse it. But when I'm giving a seller's disclosure, I say, okay, lawsuit. Hey, did you hear me? Lawsuit? Okay, hey, I got your attention now?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. You don't fill this form out, that's what you're going to be dealing with. So you better make sure you fill this form out truthfully, and if you're not sure, you need to talk to me. Don't guess. This isn't a test. We need truth. Okay, lawsuit? Got that? Lawsuit?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, making sure. Lawsuit. Okay. Why do I say it 3 times at least? Because what's going to be in the back of your mind about that form?
I don't want to be in a lawsuit.
I don't want to be in no lawsuit, so I'm going to fill this thing out right. Okay? So, again, you want to emphasize that they need to disclose material things. Now, do you need to go bust down the wall and make sure that the pipes are blue, not pink?
No.
No. It's not material. Doesn't matter. But if you're going to put down you've got copper pipes, you better make sure you have copper pipes.
Yeah.
Okay? Again, like I said, material means physical defects as well as non-tangible facts or psychological stigmas. That's where the last one gets you. I remember when I was a little kid back in Navasota where I lived at when I was born and raised there, there was certain houses that I always thought, just from, kids, we always thought they were haunted. Okay? They're haunted houses.
Who knows what that time is?
But in that situation, I thought they were haunted houses. Well, a house can actually become stigmatized. The house can become stigmatized. Okay? So in that situation is if your house is classified as a haunted house, do you know you have a duty to disclose that? Yeah, you got a duty. Because the fact is, yeah, nobody in town may buy that house, but who might? Well, here comes Mr. Enrique moving into town, and he's like, man, this is a big house, and it's cheap for the price. I'm going to buy it. And the person doesn't go and disclose that it's haunted. Guess what? If he believes in ghosts or spirits, guess what? He can sue for breach of material fact.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So you don't disclose the suicide and the other stuff, but you disclose if it's stigmatized as a ghost house?
Yes, ma'am.
So Amityville Horror.
Exorcist house.
Miss Leela, I gotta tell you something. Me and you need to get in this business, by the way. There was a client I had. There's a house here in Bryan College Station, or in Bryan, not College Station, that is a very, very old house. Very old house. The guy that actually found it, Brazos County, lived there. Okay. And my client came in from out of the States, came in because it was up for auction. We went in, got able to go into the house and walk around it and everything. Number one, it was creepy. Just gonna be honest. Yeah, we're there during the daytime, okay? And we get in, we're walking around, and my client said, well, my inspector will be here in a little bit. And I said, okay. So I'm thinking a home inspector. We get through this deal, and next thing you know, this older gentleman and this younger lady show up, and they said that they are spirit inspectors. And I said, excuse me? I said, are you talking about like Ghostbusters? And they were like, yeah, we're like Ghostbusters, but we come out and we look at properties. And I was like, you're serious? He's like, yeah. And I said, how many of these do you do like a month? He's like, oh yeah, we do probably 50 to 100 a month.
Wow.
I almost fell over. I was like, what education do you have? Oh, well, you just go online, get the certification, and you end up your ghost inspector. I mean, I was like, I need to get in this.
Change your careers.
Yeah, we're all going to change careers right now. So right now, so everybody in the classroom right now, everybody online is now Googling ghost inspector.
Right.
So,
I already did it.
but yes, there are people that actually, we'll talk more about it as we get to psychological stigmas, but there are people that will pay for it. There are people that will pay for those things. So, but yeah, I mean, that is one of the things is that a psychological stigma can actually be a material fact. Okay. Go ahead and click on the next one for me. Thank you. So this one right here, this form as you see right here, this is, huh? No, it's actually not an old one. This is actually the TREC form. This is not TAR. This is the TREC form. It is the very basic form. As you can see through here, as I'm jumping through, you can see it's very basic. It is not detailed. It's not very analytical. It's very just basic. Okay. These pursuant to this stuff that's up here, these pages are the only ones that you have to fill out. Okay. This is your minimum standard. Now TAR takes it a step further, and I believe currently we're at 4 or 5 pages, maybe 6, but we're a lot more than this one. This is 3. I think we're like at 4 or 5, maybe 6 pages. Okay. Now, the question that we want to also look at in the court case was the Kessler versus Fanning. And it says either fact or opinion. Okay. The statements, the key thing about this, when we're determining, when a judge sits up here, Aiden, and he's trying to make a determination of was what you said fact or opinion, that judge is going to look at these statements right here. You ready? So if you make a statement to me or to my client or whatever, my first thing the judge is going to look at was the statement specific or was it vague? So what you said, if you said, I guarantee there is no termites in this house, is that a fact or an opinion from that first thing? Be a fact, because what did I do? I was very specific in what I said. Now, what if I say, you know, Aiden, that's a good question. I'm not certain, to be honest with you. I'd have to probably check with the seller, but from my experience, maybe not, but I need to check for you. Fact or opinion? Why is it an opinion?
You're very vague.
I'm very vague. I'm not certain. Okay? So you have to see what type of statements you say. Like Mr. Grossman earlier today, he typed up something. We both were saying the same thing. But what did I end up doing, Mr. Grossman, in that particular situation? You wrote the deal up, and I came back, and what did I do to your email?
You deleted everything and reworded it.
Why did I do that? Because
you're evil.
Because you're mean.
Because I'm mean.
I took all that time to write it.
Because the thing is that I'm thinking about all these situations and how I'm setting up my words so that I may not want to end up making it a fact. I might want it to be an opinion. Okay. Now, in that particular email, I was shooting for what? I want to make a point, right?
Passive aggressive.
Passive aggressive?
Yeah, that's
Leela, I need some counseling. He said I'm passive aggressive.
what,
So
in that email.
So, in that particular situation,
Okay.
okay. She's got an appointment for me tomorrow. But in that situation was that, you know, you do have statements. Sometimes you do want to emphasize a fact. Sometimes you want to make a point. But other times you need to stay and be on the side of opinion. Now the question is, did the parties possess the same knowledge? That's another one. Did you, Mr. Aiden, know the same thing that Mr. Stephan knew? If you knew more than Stephan, you are now at an unfair advantage, and Mr. Stephan is basically injured, so Stephan needs to recoup from your fact that you lied about. What about the past rather than future conditions? It's very important you tell people the past. If I know for a fact that this property flooded 10 years ago, you think that's important information? Yeah. Because what most likely is probably going to happen again?
That's not flood.
It's going to flood in future conditions. I get clients sometimes say, I had one client, oh my gosh. I had one client, Lord have mercy on me. Great guy, real nice guy. Would not listen to me for nothing. Not listen to me for nothing. I'd show him information. Oh, yeah, that ain't ever going to happen again. I'm like, hold on. 20 years ago, this entire land was under 10 feet of water. We had, about 5 years ago, majority of your land was underwater. Now all of a sudden you want to sell it for a ton of money to Texas A&M, and it's all of a sudden no longer in a flood zone? Something's a problem here. Right? Yeah. The thing is that you need to take these into consideration. So the best way of how you determine a material fact is any fact that is relevant to a person making a decision. That's how you determine a material fact. And it's based off of a layman, not off of an expert. When I use the word layman, what am I saying? What do you think I'm saying here, Mr. Aiden?
To be honest, I've never heard the term layman in my life.
It's called an average person.
Okay, there you go. Yeah.
Okay? A layman is a normal, typical person. So, Mr. Stahl, you're a layman. Okay?
Thanks.
And and you end up, I go and I show you a property, and I tell you, by the way, I just want to let you know the colors behind this wall are not going to be blue, they're going to be pink. So just want to let you know. Do you really care? Huh. Okay, so what? I don't see them. Okay? They're behind a wall. I really don't care. But what if I tell you there's a lot of foundation issues and structure issues behind these walls?
That's the problem.
Is that a problem?
Yeah.
Does that make you make a decision that you no longer want it? Yeah. So the question you always need to be asking yourself is, when you go through, you need to think about it. If you're reading a seller's disclosure before you go talk to your client, and you see they check foundation, What should that immediately do if you're representing a buyer? This is something important. I need to tell the buyer. I need arrows, marks, you know.
On my exam, where they asked the question about, like, basically what is the classification for, in like legal situations, it matters to a reasonable person. That's when stuff's important. So even if your client makes a big deal out of it, but it's something unreasonable, and a reasonable person would not have cared,
Correct.
there's no reason.
That's correct.
There's no fault on your part.
So if I go out, and like I said earlier, if I go over here and I say, all right, Travis, the pipes behind here are pink instead of blue, and you're like, okay, no big deal. But then I go tell Mr. Grossman, hey, Mr. Grossman, the pipes behind here are pink and not blue, and he flips a lid. He goes, oh my God, this whole house needs to be burnt down. Okay?
Just burn it down.
That's unreasonable. Okay? Because it does not affect the overall function.
And if he found out after the fact and tried to sue you for that, for not disclosing material fact, that he can't, because that's not something a reasonable person would care.
Exactly. Reasonable person is a very key thing in this. And y'all got to be aware of those. So what are physical material facts? Well, it relates to the negative conditions of the property. Material facts, for example, you happen to find a house that has a large yard, that's not really a negative thing, okay? Client probably's happy, okay? You're going to focus on the negatives. What exactly is the negative aspect, and does that negative thing change a person's mind? Okay. Mr. Grossman, you're dealing with a client right now, sir. Question for you. Your client wants the entire house repainted. Could he come back and sue you if the house isn't painted and it's not in the contract? And say, I'm suing you because it's a breach of material fact.
Not like there.
No, because here's the thing. Paint is going to have wear and tear. It's going to lose color. It's going to fade over time. Clients, and I probably have every real estate agent that's in here right now will agree with this statement. Clients expect, when they purchase a house, a resale house, not a new one, a resale house, guess what they often look at? Well, I'm spending $250,000. This house better be perfect. And you have to educate them that your 1970s house that you're buying today is not going to be the same as a 2021 house. Sorry. Sorry. I get clients and I'll go out and show them properties and they're like, oh my God, this would be such a pretty house. And, you know, maybe here's what we need to do. Aiden, here's what I want you to do, man. Okay, I love the kitchen, but I want it to be more open concept. So let's go back and counter them and have the sellers make it open concept. Is that going to fly?
Probably not.
Why?
Sellers don't want to do that.
They're selling the house for what purpose?
How are you supposed to?
Yeah. They're selling it because they probably want an open concept. So they're getting rid of their old one to go get a new one. It's kind of like you going and buying a new car. Miss Davenport, you go buy a new car and you're trading you're selling your car, your current vehicle, to buy the brand new Lexus. And I come up to you and I say, okay, now, Miss Davenport, here's what I want. I want you to rotate all the miles off the car. So all the driving you do, I want you to rotate them all off for me. There's some scratch and dings and dents on here. I want all that fixed. I want to repaint it. Just make the car brand new and I'll pay you, just use value. Is that how this works? No. Okay. So we got to make certain that we explain this to our clients. We also have to advise our buyers not to rely solely on the seller's disclosure. Some clients will tell you, well, I'm going to rely on the seller's disclosure because the fact is that, the seller ain't going to lie. Using that same theory, what's that mean? Well, then we just believe them on everything. Oh yeah, there is no termites, even though there's termites everywhere. There's no termites. There's no foundation. Travis, what you talking about, man? My client, Mr. Grossman here, said there's no foundation issues. That's just normal. The house is falling in. That's normal.
That's just the thing that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you don't rely on the seller's disclosure solely. Licensed property inspections. When your client comes out and does an inspection, the inspection is not a warranty. People think that after an inspection's done, well, that means my house is in great condition. No, just means at that time the inspector came out, everything worked. I've had people that we've done inspections, the house passed, if you want to use the word passed everything, quote unquote, we don't use that word by the way, but passed everything, and they ended up, inspector left, and the stove malfunctioned. Happens. It happens. Any residential service companies must register with TREC. When we're talking about residential service companies, who are we actually talking about? What's that official name that we call it? Remember what it is?
License.
Home home warranties. Home warranty is a residential service contract. They don't use the word home warranty because the fact is when people hear warranty, what do they think? I'm covered. I can get whatever I want. That's why they call it a residential service contract. They have to register with TREC. No ifs, ands, buts about it. Some other areas of concern. Title issues. Okay. The types and quality of title. One of the key things that you have to understand in this particular situation is that there are going to be different types and quality of the title. We talked about abstract of title and title insurance. Talked about that in some of the classes before. One thing I love about real estate, and I've always had the passion about real estate, is there are so many ways you can make money. So many ways. You can end up, you can be a real estate agent where you sell houses. You can be a loan closing officer where you don't sell houses, you just go out and close loans. You could be a title abstractor and you go out and all you do is you just search the abstract. There are so many different ways. You could be a real estate appraiser, you can be an inspector, you can be so many things in this field. You go become a nurse, guess what? You're a nurse. That's pretty much it, okay? You end up, you're a real estate agent, you have so many ways. And the key thing I love about it is you don't have to go get a master's degree. You don't have to actually end up having a master's degree in this field, okay? I think, like I told y'all before, loan closings. It's a 2-day course, ends up, you do it online, and within 2 days, you're a loan closing specialist. You go out there, you close loans. You make anywhere from $100 to $250 a closing. Takes you about an hour at the max. The only long time is the driving. Okay? Try to go get a degree in loan closing. Not going to happen. Okay? Sad that some people end up, they don't have degrees. I have one good friend that was working a dead-end job. I was like, dude, take my course. Justin, I don't have the money to take your course. Take my course. It took me 3.5 months to tell him to take my course, take my course. Finally, he got in it with his manager, and his manager was like, ouch, fired. So he had no option but to take my course. He took my course, and in the last frame, I think it was 3 months he worked. He worked 9 months, 8 to 5. The last 3 months, he did the loan closings that I was telling him, and he made double his salary what he was making that 9 months in 3 months, just doing loan closings. It's not difficult. So it's so difficult. Here's what you got to do. You got to go out to a person's house. Hi, my name's Justin. I'm here to close your loan. Can I sit down?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. Here's paper. Can you sign? Okay, I notarize. Thank you. By the way, can I have a Coke?
Oh, no doubt.
Appreciate
I'll
it.
get you one. Take you two.
Put it in mailbox, I'm done. Within about 10, 15 days, I get a check in the mail for 125 or 250 bucks. How many of those think I can do a day? When I was doing it full time, I was doing about 6 to 7 a day. Not bad money. Okay. Same thing with abstracting. You can make money, you just gotta hustle. Okay. Standards of coverage and exceptions. I'm actually trying for my real estate agents, and if I can get this done, I'll even invite my students in this class to sit in if y'all want. It's on Zoom. So it won't be in person, I don't believe. But I'm trying to get a title company to come in and explain these to everybody, to go into them and actually bring you real life situations. There's also situations with additional coverage and endorsements. Sometimes your client will want endorsements for personal property. All of these are elements that you need to be aware of. Schedule C is where you need to be aware of most of this stuff. Okay? Survey issues. Whew. Let me tell you, I'm dealing with one right now that I'm about to pull my hair out. Dealing with not only title issues with this transaction, but I'm dealing with freaking survey issues. Both. Let's just put it this way. Any crazy thing that can happen will always happen to Justin first before it happens to anybody else. Just gonna let everybody know that, okay? Yet today, we got an email from Title with a bunch of issues with Title. We call our client, did you know you owed so-and-so so much amount of money? Huh? That was like 15 years ago. Yeah, he wants his money. Well, I only owed him $1,000. Yeah, it's up to $6,000 now. Well, I ain't paying that. Well, you're going to if you're going to take this sale. Okay? So sometimes you're going to have title issues that you have to remedy. But not only did I have title issues, but I had survey issues. Client told us that they had an easement to the property. We've been freaking driving on this road thinking it's an easement to find out it ain't an easement. We're trespassing. We're trespassing. His property is landlocked.
Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. Thank gosh we weren't shot that day when we saw somebody. Okay? Little sidebar for everybody, just because I like to protect my students. I don't care where you go work at, I don't care who you go with, but I'm going to tell you this, and I want you to burn this in your head. I want you to burn it in your head. So all of my people online that are listening to me right now, open them ears. Open them ears. It's very important. If you are ever driving around and you see going to a property, this is in rural areas, this isn't going to be in suburbs where you're around neighborhoods, we're talking about rural areas. If you see purple painted on post, you do not enter that property. I'll say that again. If you see purple painted on a post, you do not enter that property. You want to know why?
You'll get shot.
Exactly. In Texas, if you see purple on a post, it is a warning to you that you do not trespass. You drive through it, you're free game for them to shoot you. And guess what? They don't even have to be a threat to you. They can shoot you. So if I'm a real estate agent and I'm coming out to see Aiden's property and I pull in the drive, Aiden can be sitting on his porch with his rocking chair and his shotgun and go,
Sounds like Aiden.
I will too. Yeah.
and I forgot, he was chewing tobacco too.
Yep.
So, but in that situation is you never drive through. The only time you drive through is this. If I'm going to meet Aiden, you get to the gate, you park at the gate, and you call your client. Even if he says, just come on in, you park at that gate and you call. Because you don't know, Aiden may be in the bathroom and Miss Davenport sitting on the porch with her shotgun. She don't know I'm coming. And I go through that gate. That's it. Okay? You need to make certain that everybody is aware of that.
Are they happening tonight?
Not yet, but it does happen to people that are trespassing a lot. A lot of times people, it's a very unknown law. I didn't know about it, not from real estate. I learned about it from my private investigating courses when I took them. They told us, they had a sheriff's officer, and they told us, don't you dare drive through, because you're basically putting your life at risk. Okay? You always stop, but it's an old statute that's still on the books. Okay? People like Stephen, so you got to watch out for him. He's hillbilly. He's hillbilly here, so. I think he's lost a couple of teeth, you know, from the chewing tobacco, so. That's why he likes the mask right now, everybody. But if the situation is, yes, we end up having these kind of things I want you to be aware of, just for your own safety. Survey issues, okay? There are sometimes there are going to be surveys. Like I said, the survey may look like there's an easement. In reality, that easement could be gone. I've had properties that the survey has been passed along and passed along and passed along and passed along, but that easement's so old, it ain't even true anymore. Okay? Again, there are exemptions from certain title policies. Registered professional land surveyors are going to be the ones that do the survey. And they need to be completed before, not after closing. And I'll tell you this too. I had this happen with one of my team members before, way back. Guy just got his real estate license. Didn't come from my school. Ended up, he done it online, paid like $99 to get his real estate license. I was like, where the heck did you go to?
Right.
And that's what I was like, where the heck did you go to? Ever since the school's been closed down, but he spent $99, and I see why the school's closed down. He got his license, he got sponsored by our brokerage. He ended up on my team. And he went and showed his client a property, and he went over and freaking scheduled all the things, the appraiser, the surveyor, the home inspector, and somebody else. There's 4 people who took out there to go look at properties. Now imagine that. Can you imagine that, by the way, Travis? You go in and get all them people to travel along with you to go look at properties.
I ain't paying that.
Yeah. He scheduled them all, and he did an inspection on 3 properties, and an appraisal, and the survey, and all this stuff for this guy. And he came into the office, and he said, all right, my client, he's ready to put an offer in. I said, okay, where are we at? He said, he wants to buy this one. I said, okay, great. So let's go in and let's get it, drafted up. So we start going through, filling out all the information. We get down to the title part, and I was like, okay, well, we need to give about 20 days for survey. And he's like, no, here you go, got that. Well, what? You got that from the seller, right? No. We went out and looked at properties, and I just took a surveyor with me, and he paid them, and so we got surveys for actually all of them. And he showed me everything. Surveys, inspections, appraisal, all this stuff. I'm like, what in the world did you do? I said, you cannot have an inspection done or an appraisal or any of this stuff. You're not supposed to do it when you're just looking at properties. You cost your client tons of money. Tons of money. He's like, well, that's what I thought the school told me to do. I said, no. You go look at the properties first. Could you imagine Stefan, if you did that with you know who,
I don't think he would actually do it. He probably wouldn't do it, would he?
I think he would probably do it.
You think he would do it?
I think he would do it.
I mean, if someone's paying him, I guess. You know.
I tell you, I literally, I was blown, mind blown. But yeah, there are times in that situations that you don't do that. Okay, not a good thing. It's always to be completed before, not after. I put y'all to sleep for the past hour and a half. Now here's the good part. Y'all ready? Okay, let me pull my chair up here real quick. Let me look here for a minute. Let's see here.
God, get ready, y'all.
Miss Sheldon. Miss Sheldon, you there?
I am, and I'm nervous.
Miss Sheldon, what's that second bullet there say, ma'am? Not second, I'm sorry, the first dash.
Real or imagined events,
What's imagined mean?
conjured up in your head.
Whoa. So you're telling me that things I think about actually could affect a real estate transaction?
Yes.
Whoa, that's awesome. Because I can conjure up some crazy stuff. What you think, Travis?
It means you on that stuff.
Sorry, that was good. That was good. I'm sorry, y'all. That was good. Miss Leela, congratulations tonight.
You're welcome.
Yes, you can actually end up real or imagined events can end up being stigmatized. Even if, like Miss Leela said, here's what's awful. You can't, on certain things, you cannot disclose certain things like HIV, AIDS, or suicide, or things like that. You can't disclose them. Those are real events. But if I happen to, like Miss Leela said, if I happen to actually have a meth lab in my house and I'm making meth, okay, and I'm smoking it or whatever I'm doing with it, whatever you want to call it, and I start seeing things, guess what? That's imagined, and I end up, I can actually tell people that, oh man, guess what, Aiden? Hey, guess what, man? There's ghosts in my house, man.
For real?
Yeah. And then guess what you're gonna do?
Run?
You're gonna tell Miss Davenport,
Yeah.
and she's gonna run, and she's gonna tell her friends, and everybody around town's gonna say what?
You got ghosts.
I got a ghost in my house. And guess what? It's now stigmatized. See the problem? Okay. But here's the key thing. My ghost may be Mr. Travis's major selling point. He may actually be a ghost inspector.
I just love those.
He loves ghosts. That's his major selling point. And guys and gals, I'll tell you, there are people that love to find stigmatized properties. You want to know why?
Weird.
Nope. Because here's the thing. If I tell you there are ghosts in my house, you gonna buy it? Miss Davenport, are you gonna buy it? Stephen, you gonna buy it?
I'd have to think about it.
Travis, you gonna buy it?
I'm all in.
You all in? Why? Because what happens? What happens to my
Oh, it's cheap.
competition?
Oh, it's all gone. It's cheap.
It's gone.
That house is cheap. I like it.
That house is dirt cheap. And since it's dirt cheap, guess what? Travis gonna come in there and fix it all up and say, guess what? This house, this newly remodeled property can be your home at a low price of only $100,000. And you get a free spirit friend named Casper.
You're never alone.
There you go. So in that
I was tired of
situation,
living by myself anyway.
yes, I don't know if y'all, I wish I had some of the pictures that I get sometimes people share with me. but there's one house that they put up on the market, and across the street from this house is a cemetery. So there's a house, and looking across in the house, looking out, is your cemetery. A real estate agent put a sign up, said for sale, and down at the bottom, it ended up says, quiet neighbors across the street.
Like ghosts. Like Ghostbusters.
That's right. So again, it can end up having certain benefits of stigmatized properties, okay? So what may be a stigma to somebody may actually be a benefit to someone else. That's why a lot of times real estate investors, when there's a murder or there's a suicide or something to that nature, they'll end up going in and buying them as is. Because they know for a fact nobody else wants to buy that house. And they'll go in and they'll gut the whole place, and then guess what they end up doing? They'll go in, gut it, and put it back on the market, and people come buy it. Okay? That's how you end up, that's how there can be these stigmatizations. There also are certain HUD guidelines when it deals with stigmatized properties. And there is also Texas law regarding certain death disclosures. Okay? So, properties can be stigmatized by happenings not on, but also within a vicinity of the subject property. So, for example, I want to ask you a question, Mr. Eaton. I want you to think about your hometown. I want everybody to think about your hometown, where you were born and raised. Okay? Think about this.
Okay.
What part of town was stigmatized? Got it?
Uh-huh.
What was the reason for the stigmatization of that?
Is it empty hospital?
Empty hospital.
Oh yeah.
Okay? That's a stigmatized property. What about an area of town? Did you have an area of town that was like, don't you go to that area?
Yeah. Well, yeah, because there was a school nearby where some stuff happened, and so that got shut down as well. So yeah, that whole part of town was kind of
Bad area.
Yeah.
Okay? So what happens is, like it said, it's sad to say, it really is sad to say, but people just using College Station and Bryan, what do you think people think when they come in to move here? Do they want College Station or do they want Bryan? Why do they want College Station, Stephen?
Because it's bigger and
Not bigger. What's
It's known as a nicer part of town.
It's high end.
It's
It's
higher
nice.
end, yeah.
Okay. What do people, when you say Bryan, I'm moving to Bryan,
He left here a while ago.
they're gonna be like, no. Mr. Grossman, your client, would you like to go to Bryan so-and-so? What was his response?
I don't want to live in Bryan.
His response to me was, hell no. That's what he told me. Why? It's not that bad. No, my kids ain't going to that school. What's so wrong with the school? What if I say Hearn, Texas?
That's even worse.
What about Navasota, Texas?
That's probably the worst of all.
That's where Linda's from. I can't,
That's
I
where
can't do that.
But do you see what I'm saying is? Now, I will say, because I know Darren is probably sleeping right now, but I can tell you, let's test this. What about Huntsville? Who? What?
He's not
So he fell asleep.
yeah, he's not in the
Oh, no, that's him right there.
So,
That's him with his head down.
Yeah, he's still sleeping over there. He's listening to me. Well, halfway listening to me.
I bet he's trying to find the button.
Yeah, he's trying to find that button to get in here and talk.
he said he's up.
He's up. But no, so in these situations is yes, there's always going to be certain stigmatized properties or certain things. Okay? Properties can be stigmatized simply by happenings. God forbid this never happened, but what if there was a shooting at a local school? what's going to happen to that entire school? That entire school is going to be what? Stigmatized. Not just that school, but what about the town? The entire town. Okay? So in these situations it could be at no fault of your own. Aiden, you could be back home, live in the nicest part of your town, and if there's a school shooting, guess what? That whole town, just what happens?
Known as the school shooting.
Y'all remember Waco? What happened in Waco?
Church. God.
Huge massacre.
Yeah.
Now, when you talk about Waco, what do people think? Stay away from there. Don't you move there. Okay? Things like that can cause property values to plummet. Okay? So things like criminal activity, drive-by shootings, rezoning, pets disappearing, or living next to Aiden. I mean, noisy and obnoxious.
You're right.
Okay?
Yes, you're correct.
So,
I have a question.
yes, ma'am.
Pets disappearing.
Yes, ma'am.
There have been some kind of areas that was talking about pets disappearing.
Oh, yes. See, there is
Could be a vampire. Like eating
a vampire. No. There are certain people, Miss Leela, and it's sad to say this, but there are certain people that will let their dogs, here in College Station especially, they'll go to dog parks and they'll let their dog off on a leash. They'll just let them run around, and they're purebred. They're purebred dogs. They're very expensive, and there are people that will steal those dogs to basically mate them to make money, because they cannot afford to pay for the money. They'll just steal it. So in that situation if there's a lot of pets that are disappearing, that is a concern for those people, especially if you spend a lot of money for those pets.
Okay, I understand.
You see where I'm coming from that? Just like theft, like car theft, or auto theft, or I mean, I know for a while here in Bryan, we had people that I remember down the road from my own house. Somebody they stole the tires off of this brand new pickup. Well, people don't like that. People don't want to be around there. That's crime. People do not want to be around areas that are going to have criminal activity. Okay? So again, those are just some of those stigmatized properties. Other examples, now those of course are physical. I mean psychological. These are your physical stigmas. See, psychological, can you really measure them, honestly? No. It's an opinion, something that you dream up or you have a concern about. See, me, I don't really care where I'm at, to be honest with you. If I can get a big house and I'm in Hearn, Texas, I don't care. I'm getting a big house, okay? Everybody else may be like, what's your problem? I'm like, I don't care. I got a big house, okay?
Can't hear you on top of my double stair set that goes up the
Exactly, right? Uh-huh.
What's wrong with Hearn?
Hearn is known a lot of times as the armpit of the Brazos Valley. That's what my students used to tell me all the time in class. That's what they would always tell me. But Navasota, which is where I'm from, isn't much better. So
That's our bed. That would be the butt crack.
yeah. But I'm just saying in this situation.
Geographically.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But in this situation, like I tell people all the time, is that when you're dealing with these situations, that they end up, people have these psychological issues. Is Hearn or Navasota really a bad area? No. No. It's the people that are there. I guarantee you, there's certain spots in College Station, even though people think it's high end, there's spots in College Station that aren't that good. Doesn't matter. Does not matter. But again, those are things that you cannot measure. Now with physical stigmas, these are things that can. you're living in a house that has asbestos, you can feel it. Okay? So the conditions that actually affect your health and safety, the impact on the property values. Like Mr. Garrett's house, I know he's got a meth lab over there, so you know that's a concern. Right, Mr. Garrett?
Yeah, the whole house.
The whole house.
He has to put his back real quick.
But in that situation is that yes, there can be asbestos, lead, and let me tell you about lead. Now remember, anything, I'm gonna test my agents real quick. A house built before when do you need lead-based paint disclosure?
78.
What particular date? January 1st, 1978. Before January 1st, 1978, you have to provide a lead-based paint disclosure. Lead-based paint disclosure, what's so important about lead-based paint disclosure? Well, here's the thing. Most paint used to have lead in it. Okay? So, for example, say for example, this actually happened. It wasn't no for example. There was a case a long time ago. A little boy, grandma would have her grandson over at her property. And the grandmother has lived in her property since it was built in the 1950s. Okay? Grandma had her grandchildren over. Grandson used to go play outside on the front porch, the wraparound porch. He'd take his little cars and he would play with them, vroom, vroom, you know, around the deal. Okay? And ever so often, he would get bored and he would peel off, just like a normal boy does, being curious, would peel off paint off the side of the wall. And he would, what do little boys do? When they get something, it goes where?
Right in their mouth.
Right in the mouth. Right in the mouth.
I still do that.
Okay? You still do that. And the little boy put it in his mouth. You know what lead does? Lead's very sweet. So when you put it in your mouth, guess what happens? It's sweet.
Tastes good.
Tastes good. So the little boy kept going in there and just kept putting it in his mouth, putting it in his mouth. And every time he would go back home to his mother, he'd get sick. Real sick. And the mother would look at grandma and say, "What in the world are you doing to my kid? Are you trying to kill your grandkid?" And the grandma's like, "No, I'm not. I've done nothing." And eventually, over time, the boy died. Investigators came out, arrested grandma, because the mom said that the grandma was poisoning them and all this stuff. Come to find out, when they finally did a toxicity report, guess what they found out? Extremely high levels of lead. Extremely high levels of lead. Okay? So in those particular situations lead can have a huge impact on you as a human and also on you as a child. Okay? So you got to be very careful. Asbestos is also another area you got to be careful with. Any of you ever was born and raised or lived in a house or maybe live in a house that had popcorn ceilings? You know what popcorn ceilings is?
Yeah.
What's it look like, Travis?
Oh, it's like popcorn.
Little bitty bubbles
Little bubbles everywhere.
all over the ceiling. That's asbestos sometimes. Now in hard form, asbestos is not dangerous to you. But if you get up there like they're now doing, and people are taking it off with no mask, very deadly. Because asbestos in powder or gas state can make you very, very, very ill. Okay, and can kill you. So these are some physical. So what are the guidelines for disclosure? Well, you got to know what the difference between facts and fiction. Okay? You also have to follow any state laws. Currently, right now, is there really any state laws for ghost inspections? No. But if there's an organization, they can come together and form, there might be a state law coming. The materiality. What exactly, how important is it? Also, does it need to be discussed with the sellers? Again, I'll let y'all Google the Sanchez versus Gutierrez case. This is the next one that's most important to me, is Megan's Law. It's sad that we can't do this, but if you've never heard of Megan's Law, it is a federal law. And it is the Texas data that maintains by the Department of Public Safety. And it basically exempts the duty of disclosure for owners and landlords and real estate agents. Here's the problem, okay? Megan's Law basically ends up in this particular situation. Megan's Law is created to tell people about sex offenders. It's sad that we're exempt from this duty to disclose. I understand why they do it, but I'm going to say this. It's sad that we cannot actually end up being honest and telling people, okay? So, in this particular situation, what I needed everybody to understand here, okay? You got to be careful how you handle these. What I mean by this is this situation. You end up, say for example, I'm going to talk to Miss Davenport here. Miss Davenport, you got a client that she's a single mother. She has 3 kids. And she's trying to find a house on her own to support her kids. Okay? Miss Davenport goes out, she shows a bunch of properties. Do you really actually think in the back of your mind, oh yeah, I need to run a check for sex offenders? Do you think that as a real estate agent? No, nobody does. But you end up, you happen to be a very proactive realtor. And you go and you look on the map and you find out that the 2 doors down from where your client's about to move, Mr. Grossman lives there and he's a sex offender. What does she do? What should she do, Mr. Aiden?
I forgot this part of the class.
I know, I'm just asking, what should she do? What would you, if you were in Miss Davenport's shoes, and you know this, what would you do?
I would probably tell her.
You would tell her.
I know it's not.
Hold on. You don't have to justify it. Mr. Travis, would you tell her? Would you tell this single mom with 3 kids that there's a sex offender that lives 2 doors down?
Yeah.
You would. Stephen?
I would advise her that she needs to
Oh.
go to a website.
Yeah, see, I wouldn't tell her. I would tell her.
I would tell her she needs to look at.
Why would you tell her that she needs to go to a website?
Since I can't say it to her, I would say it would be in y'all's best interest to look at this website.
But why? Why would you even tell her that?
When
Here's my question. Are you really a sex offender?
no.
No. What if Miss Davenport says, oh yeah, Sheldon, by the way, there's a sex offender 2 doors down, but she doesn't say the name. And you happen to live there. What's Sheldon going to immediately assume?
She slandered my name.
She slandered your name. There you go. She slandered your name. Because of the fact is, you're not 100% certain. We talked about earlier that people can do what? People make typos. They make errors, right? Make typos. They make errors. And if they make typos and they make errors, could they possibly make a typo in a governmental database? Think about this. If you're in the government, how many people do you think is working on that database on a daily basis? That's right. There's a lot of people that are entering stuff every day. Errors happen. It's life. So in that situation, like you said, it could have been Stephen Grossman, and instead they typed Stephen Grossman. And if Miss Davenport says, oh yeah, Miss Sheldon, Stephen Grossman is a child molester, guess what? She goes down there and she confronts him or whatever. He's like, what are you talking about? I didn't do nothing. And he really didn't. Miss Davenport just slandered his name. The best way to handle it is like Mr. Grossman said. If you see that, you may want to advise your client to review that website, but emphasize that you're not 100% certain. And if they would like to check with DPS, they more than welcome to do so. But you do not say that this particular individual is a sex offender, or that the person that lives 2 doors down is a sex offender. You don't do that, okay? Further, when dealing with disclosures, you cannot basically deal with disclosures for certain individuals. There are certain protective classes. You also cannot disclose a client's negotiating position. When dealing with misrepresentation, remember the plaintiff must prove under DTPA that the broker made a misstatement. The broker knew, or look at that next part there, should have known that that statement was inaccurate. So if I come out to Miss Sheldon's property and I say, I'm looking at her property, we're about to put it on the market, and I see termite holes in the wall, and I say, Sheldon, is this termites here? No, it's not termites. But I've been in this industry long enough that I can spot a termite. And I'm like, Sheldon, I'm pretty certain that's no, that's not termites. Well, guess what? Should I have known that it was inaccurate? Yes. So I made a misstatement that I should have known was inaccurate. And the buyer relied on what I said, and the buyer was damaged. As long as this is done, they can sue under DTPA. So what is the element of reliance? Well, again, it comes back to that main point. Was the information material inducement? Did it make up their mind? Again, agency is not a defense. I can't say, well, Your Honor, Mr. Aiden, Sheldon told me this, so I was relying on Sheldon. So and under agency, the law, I'm protected, right? Nope. Cannot use that as a defense because I should have known better. Under the DTPA, licensees should not be held liable, however, for innocent acts of misrepresentation. If I was innocent in the situation and I didn't see anything because Sheldon went and hit all the hose and repainted it, and I didn't see nothing, well then I'm innocent in that situation, and under the DTPA, I shouldn't be held liable. Okay? Because the courts don't say that, okay, Ms. Davenport, you need to go in here and bust down Sheldon's wall and look for termites back here. No. They take common sense into play. Okay? Again, you got to watch what is said. Very key in this situation. So your key points tonight. Agency is a two-party agreement. avoid any misrepresentation. Remember, you have certain responsibilities to third parties. You have to be fair and honest, disclose material facts, and seller's disclosure of the property condition is extremely important. Remember, material facts can be either physical condition or things like title issues and survey issues. Stigmatized properties, of course, have psychological sources and physical conditions that are outside of the property. We discussed Megan's Law as well as NAR guidelines and confidential non-material information. Suggestions for brokers is in your company programs. You should have a program in regards to misrepresentation, omission of important information. You should also review disclosure laws frequently. So the question this evening, a seller's disclosure is neither a warranty nor a guarantee. What does that mean to you, Travis? A seller's disclosure is neither a warranty nor a guarantee.
You can't take the seller's disclosure as fact. It's a good indication of what they know or what they think's wrong, but it's kind of up to what they decide to put on there. So you can't take it as a guarantee or a fact.
So it puts you in the right direction, would you say? So as an inspector, here's my stuff. These are the elements that I want to look a little more into. Okay. Mr. Grossman, what issues are involved when the agent discovers that the new listing was previously the home of extensive drug dealing? So this is buying Mr. Garrett's house. What are some issues that you're concerned about?
They could have left some things behind in the house.
They could have left things behind.
You know, like needles and stuff. I
Okay. Mr. Garrett, with that meth lab you got, do you happen to have certain chemicals in your house?
don't know. Right.
Jesse?
Yeah.
Garrett's quiet on us now.
Yeah. Lots of chemicals.
I gotta give Garrett a hard time. But Garrett, question though for you. Could there be concerns of a buyer if there was a drug dealing house? What could be a concern if there was a drug dealing house? What do you think would be a concern for you?
Someone was killed in the house.
Somebody could be killed?
What if people come to your house looking for?
Exactly, that's what I was looking for. If you are a previous drug dealing house, so hypothetically, all this is hypothetical, if Garrett's house was that, and Stephen, you purchased the house, and here comes Aiden over to get his quick fix, guess what? You enjoying that?
Not really.
Not at all. Okay? So again, that's a key thing. Okay? They often will destroy a house. People that do drugs and all sometimes will destroy the house. Or they will sometimes, to hide their drugs, they will put holes in your wall and put it behind the walls to hide it from police. So if that person moves out, guess what? You may move in there, and here comes Aiden, who the police are watching, to your front door, Stephen, and they come raiding your house. Guess what happens? They come in and raid, and even though you say I just bought it, they find crack or they find meth or whatever in the house. Guess what? You're in possession. Okay? So again, very important situations there. How many of you would feel uncomfortable buying and moving into a house in which there has been a murder-suicide only 3 months ago? How do you feel about that? Huh? 3, yep.
Oh, okay. I'll have one.
Oh, you don't have the third one? Oh, goodness. Yeah, that was the last one. They didn't print off the last one, Stephen.
Oh yeah, sorry about that.
So in that situation is, how would you feel Aiden, how would you feel living in or moving into a house where a murder-suicide happened just 3 months ago? You feel comfortable?
Probably not too comfortable.
What if it was 10 years ago?
I think at that point I'd be all right with it.
What about 100 years ago?
Oh yeah, I'm cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're gone.
Hopefully.
And everybody's sleeping.
So, again, you can see there's a lot of things when dealing with these situations. There's a lot of different things you got to take into consideration. It's just how this industry works. But tonight, again, we had a lot of material that we covered this evening. You notice from the previous classes, this one's kind of a lot more in-depth, but it's good in-depth. It's good practical information. So, Mr. Grossman, I'm going to go ahead and ask you to go ahead and stop our recording for this evening, please, sir.